Welcome to the Curator's Corner at the festival Art is Live, SOUNDFRAMES. Music is one of the most participatory art forms. From birds to human beings, just about everyone has added to the cumulative quotient of the universe. What then is music? Is it an evocative melody, racy rhythms, jazzy tunes, mellifluous harmony, gritty lyricism? It transcends almost every characterization. Beyond algorithms and crafted hashtags, music remains a playlist of personal, emotional choices at a primal level. At a collective level, music builds a shared universe. While we have options that are creatively infinite, we seek our favorites to be played ad infinitum. The compass that I've used for the session navigation is to traverse the world of music through its notes, its range, its element, the hallmark and features of the infinite expressions, its own atlas, its roots in development, through musical wings in flight, through emotional expression, and how expressions exhibit staying power. A small caveat, I have woven in demonstration videos from the craft of some of the artists participating in the festival Art is Live SOUNDFRAMES to allow you to extrapolate the journey of music. I generously weave in examples from Indian classical music to establish a continuity in illustrations. If you take a look at the slide, the 7 notes and their expansions are the foundation stone to infinite expressions. There are a group of 7 notes arranged together. Each note is a swara, or a selected pitch or shruti. In Indian music, the notes are referred to as sa, re, ga, ma, pa, dha, ni, sa. The bunching of these 7 notes is called a sargam or a saptak. In Western music, the notations are referred by C, D, E, F, G, A, B, forming one octave, another word for sargam. The genesis of the word octave is in a Latin word called octavus, denoting 8. In other words, the octave is the distance between one note and the next note bearing the same name. It's like a double frequency. We traverse from a single octave to 3 octaves. Taking an example from Indian classical music, the 3 octaves are mandra, or the lower octave, madhya, the middle octave, and tar, the highest octave. The 3 octaves allow for music to flow across a range of pitches. The notes are always sung in an ascending order and in a descending order. An acclaimed vocalist like Pandit Bhimsen Joshi, with his vocal range and vocal voice control, could travel across the octaves from the lower octave to the higher octave, dipping into the middle octave, all this effortlessly, creating that magic of sounds. The tabular representation now elevates your view from the foothills to the Himalayan range of permutation and combinations possible from the 7 note siblings as they arrange themselves to form a musical expressions. The best example to graphically explain this point is in the Indian twin legacies of classical tradition, Hindustani and Carnatic music. Please take a look at the slide, at the table and the 2 rows. Now, from the original 7 notes, we can see an extension to 12 notes. A few rules apply that we take as given. The first and the 5th note are constant. That is the sa, the first note, also called the tonic note, and pa, the 5th note. The notes re, ga, dha, and ni now get 2 notes each. One is a shuddh swara or a sharp note, and the other is a komal swara or a flat note, sometimes a little softer note. The note ma assumes a special status and gets only one more note of a higher pitch. In Carnatic music, there are few extensions. The swara re and ga now have three positions. All these formulas have been configured to enhance the range of pleasing sounds to the human ear. This diagrammatic representation looks complex but shows the smallest tonal interval that is audible to a human ear. It sort of finesses the nuances of the tone. In music, the smallest note, staying on the note, the silence between the note are as powerful and of as paramount significance as the loud sounds in the overall aesthetics of the pattern. A quick look at the illustration on the expansive range in Western music. This is a chromatic scale. The word chromatic is derived from the Greek word chroma, which means color. The traditional function of the chromatic scale was to color or embellish the tones of major and minor keys, a concept that I would visit in another part of the segment. In most cultures, these note building arrangements are techniques for creating what is quintessentially music sounds. Let's shift gears from notes and octaves to the elements of music. When we discuss music in general, we refer to the elements of music in terms of melody, rhythm, and harmony. Elaborating on harmony, melody is probably the most identifiable element in a musical composition. A defining characteristic of melody is the arrangement of the series of notes to form a satisfying and a memorable sequence. The contours of melody are made up of notes, group of notes, sometimes repeating the group of notes to elaborate the original melody, the rise and fall of the notes, the staying on the note, and the silences. Remember, all this is from our sargam and the octave. In Indian classical music, a rag forms the melodic framework, and it is to be explored within its grammar. A few examples of rag grammar would be that every rag must have 5 notes. It should have a specific set of notes in the ascending order and descending order. It has to have a dominant note, and so on. Let's view and listen to a musical demonstration in the Carnatic tradition. A composition by Muthuswami Dikshitar, Ramakali in Rag Ramakali. Do observe how the artist touches upon the notes in the melodic arrangement of the raga. Vignesh renders the composition, accompanied by Shreya on the violin and Praveen on the mridangam.
Ga pa da ni da da pa ma ga da pa ma ga da pa ma ga re ga da pa ga ma ga re sa ni da sa re ga pa ga dha pa ga ni da pa ma ga pa da sa sa ga re sa ni da re sa ni da pa ma ga sa ni da pa ma ga re ga ra kali kalushaya virama dhara brulama rama rama
In the demonstration, Vignesh renders the notations with oscillations on the notes, particularly at dha, pa, ma, ga, and re, and how he stays on the notes. These are called gamakas or ornamentation of the raga and give the composition its identity and recall. In the second musical illustration demonstrating rhythm, musicians Ambi and Bindu swirl with melody through vocals and voice of strings in Rag Devipriya, embellished with contemporary fusion elements. The rag and its melody matches the scales in gypsy music, in the music of Spanish flamenco dance. Interestingly, the composition the artists render here is a tilana, which is primarily used in Bharatanatyam dance. Different cultures, yet the connection of musical strands. Bindu rendering vocals, Ambi at the violin, Vivek at the keyboard, and Karthik Mani at the percussion. We now shift gears and sees how time and rhythm enter the schema. Rhythm is music's pattern in time, and it gives the composition its structure. The component of rhythm would include the time signature, that is how many number of beats, the time meter, the tempo, are they strong beats or slight, accents or the emphasis on rhythm, polyrhythm, which makes use of two or more different rhythms simultaneously played. Traditional African music is celebrated for its complex rhythms. In Indian music, rhythm is referred to as tal or tala, the repetitive beats, and laya denotes the interval of time between the beats and movement in time. In a Indian classical music performance, the melodic soloist and the percussionist have to follow and allow for the music to flow on track with all measurements and subdivisions pertaining to a given tal. It is the vocalist who gives direction. He or she sounds the most important note, the inflection points in the composition, the hand gestures giving directional indicators to the music's course and its glide. In the next music illustration, we have Pandit Sanjeev Abhyankar ji rendering a composition Main To Savare Ke Rang Rachi by Mirabai in Rag Hemang. The tal is bhajani theka, a particular form of rhythm for this style of composition. We have A. Joshi at the tabla and Apurva Dravid giving us the side rhythms. The integrity of the musicians here is for a note-by-note match of melody and rhythm.
तो सावरे के रंग राची में तो सावरे के रंग राची साजी सिंगार बांधी पग घुंघरू साजी सिंगार बांधी पग घुंघरू लोक लाज तजनाची लोक लाज तजनाची मैं तो सावरे के रंग राची मैं तो सावरे के रंग सावरे के रंग सावरे के रंग राची गोपाल 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 गोपाल
So after melody and rhythm, we come to the third component of the elements of music, that is harmony. Harmony is the sounding of more than one note together at the same time. It is the vertical aspect of music that makes music rich and full. More importantly, harmony of music is built to complement the melody. In simplest terms, we may have two main types of harmony, the consonant and the dissonant. The consonant harmony sounds smooth and sort of blends. The dissonant harmony may be jarring but makes the music intriguing and interesting. Indian music does not use harmony in the way Western music does. It is the drone or the tanpura playing a combination of the tonic note sa and the fifth note pa in a fixed pattern in the background provides a pleasing contrast to the notes of melody and brings in that unique sonority of the rag. Let's hear and view a delightful musical demonstration by the children of the Bengaluru Children's Choir rendering choral harmony.
Into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country away. Into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country away. Bharat mera desh hai, Bharat hamara desh hai.
Where the mind is without fear and the head held high, when knowledge is free.
Bharat mera desh hai, Bharat hamara desh hai.
Where the world has not been broken by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth.
Into that heaven of freedom, my Father.
On the plinth of notes and elements, each culture of music in their respective geographies have created their musical edifices. As we pivot around the globe, we get to see an atlas of infinite musical expressions, with each culture stamping its musical identity. Mumbai, the Hindi film industry's music. What once was Persia, the Sufi music. Vienna, Western classical music, the bastion of Western classical music. Salzburg, the birthplace of Mozart. Liverpool, the industrial town that gave us the Beatlemania. The tiny island that gave us reggae and protest poetry. Mississippi, the birthplace of blues, and just down the river, the birthplace of jazz, New Orleans. From Seoul, in 2020, K-pop was the most popular form of music. And we return home to the Chennai Carnatic Classical Music Center, where we know what music it generates. How did the core of myriad expressions, styles, form of music get their fortification? Each terrain, as we saw in the Atlas of Expression, strengthened their music edification with codification and documentation. This was done by musicologists and scholars who assumed the role of structural engineers and draftsmen. They were artists too, who enriched the next generation by safeguarding the line of continuum. An important example being the Melakarta system. Please take a look at the image on this slide. This is a representation of a system of codification that was done in the Carnatic music tradition. Undoubtedly, the wheel appears complex and bewildering in this Melakarta system. However, on studying it, This complex configurator actually simplifies the gigantic matrix of ragas. The circle defines 72 7-note combinations to create the Melakarta system. It further defines and details what can be derived from the root of information. It's actually like a raga reckoner. The point to be noted here is that as early as 1500s and 1600s, a need was felt for a sophisticated system of frameworks. Let's hear a musical demonstration by musician Mahesh Raghavan, trained in the Carnatic tradition, who mastered the Melakarta system. On his app GeoShred on the iPad, he takes on the rag Sindhu Bhairavi with all its derivations. Codification and classification facilitate such adaptation and innovation. In his musical arrangements, Mahesh's nimble fingers touch upon all the notes of the rag, encompass all the speeds of the rag, and blends the section with fusion elements. On a parallel track, elsewhere in the world, a similar grammar was being set from 1600 onwards in the Baroque period. Baroque musicologists, like their counterparts in South India, were great advocates of systematization. This in a time when the world had yet to witness the pace of communication flow of the present times. Yet the world was moving in a belief that music is a universal language. This period witnessed the creation of the major and the minor keys that paved way for great expressions in music. A major and a minor scale was built for all the 12 different pitches. Composer and pianist Robert Greenberg refers to this resultant notion as a pitch palette. The major keys paved the way for sounds that were joyous, boisterous. Hey Jude by the Beatles, that evokes hope. Sir Paul McCartney wrote this in the F major scale, a scale that corresponds to the emotion of hope. A minor key expresses less jubilant, restrained mood atmosphere. A lot of very deep, melancholic music was created in the D minor scale. The creation of tonality, the systematic inquiry was an important contribution that made it possible for instrumental music to find its own space and calling and for newer techniques to be demonstrated. Let's take a look at a musical demonstration of the pitch palette. Kavita and Kanishk Seth render a composition, Rangasari. Kavita represents the tradition sung by Shobha Gurdu in Rag Mishra Pahadi. Her voice moves with the flow of the rag, combined with her Sufiana style of singing. Kanish, dipping into the pitch palette, deploys an A-sharp scale to infuse brightness to the tones of music. He adds layers of orchestration through the electronic music. Both artists maintain their style and individuality but meet musically to render a composition, Rangasari.
Rangi sari rangi sari
rangi sari gulabi chunariya re rangi sari gulabi chunariya re mohe mare nazariya sanwariya re mohe mare nazariya sanwariya re
जाओ जी जाओ जाओ जी जाओ जाओ जी जाओ बनाओ ना बतियाँ
The magic of sounds. The notes, the elements, the geography, the codification are all like an aerodrome for musical flights. One of the vital forces of music is its migratory nature. It's hugely mobile. At a subterranean level, it can transport us in our hearts and mind to another place. At an overt level, memories of diasporic community, technological advancements, musicians performing at different stages, and cross-pollination of styles thereof, has shown that music is both rooted into its soil as well as its nomadic. A point in example, the Bhangra music from the state of Punjab, with its Indian earthy tones and beats, has carved stage space in United Kingdom, particularly in London. The score sheet would have the presence of a synthesizer, a drum machine instead of a dhol. Lyrics could be Bhangra rap. The ancestry of sound is as evident as its migratory sound. In travel of music from its homeland to new territories, music adaptation leads to interesting hybrids. Let's take a look at the concept of the notaswaram, a meshing of two words, note and swara. The great composer Muthuswami Dikshitar in the early 1800s took Sanskrit shloks and set them to Western C major scale. The corresponding rag that are approximately based on is Shankarabharanam in the Carnatic music and Rag Bhilaval in the Hindustani music tradition. The compositions were based on original Western melodies, primarily Scottish and Irish. A composition of his Vande Meenakshi, a prayer to goddess Meenakshi, is very interestingly set to an Irish melody, the Rakes of Mallow. Let's view and hear a demonstration of this composition. Amrita and Vignesh lead the vocals, accompanied by Shreya on the violin and Praveen on the mridangam.
वन्दे मीनाक्षि त्वां सरसिजवक्त्रे पर्णे दुर्गे नतसुरवृन्दे शक्ते गुरुगुहपालिनि जलरुहचरणे सुन्दर पाण्ड्यानन्दे माये सहोदरी गौरी शुभकरी सततमहम् वन्दे मीनाक्षि त्वां सरसिजवक्त्रे पर्णे दुर्गे दतसुरवृन्दे शक्ते गुरुगुहपालिनि जलरुह
Interestingly, 50 years later, Nobel laureate poet Rabindranath Tagore, influenced by his journeys, penned his lyrics to songs also set on tunes of Scottish, Irish, and English songs. A composition of his in Bengali, Purano Sher Dinir Kotha, is based on the melody To Drink to Me Only with Thine Eyes and Ol Lang Syne. These songs were recorded in his travel diaries, and he referred to them as melodies of humanity. Melodies of humanity are located in emotional frameworks. The sequence of our narrative has sort of journeyed through notes, elements, geography, codification, migration. All these elements are intimately intertwined with emotions. As such, there is often the emotional response to music. Listening to music is a social experience. Compositional architecture with lyrics and musics have a fundamental attraction and draw over us. There is really no reason why a particular song matters. It just matters. Pretty much like love that stands no reason. If you look at the map of India on the slide, this corresponds to the Bhakti period between the 8th and the 17th century. One probably gets the most vivid example of an emotional expression to music. The Bhakti movement that swept and stayed in India for centuries. The devotion of the people connected with the poetry of the philosopher composers like Kabir, Mirabai, Amir Khusro. These poets composed lyrics in the language of the people. The alchemy of verse and music gave a profusion of musical forms and style. Almost every area in India had its own unique style of singing, from the Gurubani, the Abhang, the Bhajan. One such form that emerged was a Qawwali. Amir Khusro, a singer, a poet, a musician, and a scholar, is considered to be the father of Qawwali. He was a disciple of Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia and lived in the court of the Delhi Sultanate around 1260 to the 1300s. The essential themes of the Qawwali are based on devotion, love, longing for the divine. The essence of the Sufiana Kalam here, in which the art form is based, is about oneness. While the Qawwali is about Ruhaniyat, appeal to the soul, it's also the singer's conversation with his peer or the spiritual guide. Let's hear and view a musical demonstration of Qawwali by the Darbari Qawwals of the Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia Dargah, rendering a composition Chhap Tilak, a composition by Amir Khusro, the Niazi brothers.
अपनी छप बनाई के मैं जो पी के पास गई अपनी छप बनाई के मैं जो पी के पास गई जब छप देखी पीहू की सो मैं अपनी भूल गई छाप तिलक सब छीन रे मोसे नैना मिला के छाप तिलक सब छीन रे मोसे नैना मिला के छाप तिलक सब छीन सैया ने मोसे नैना मिला के छाप तिलक सब छीन महबूब ने मोसे नैना मिला के छाप तिलक सब छीन रे मोसे.
While the lyrics of the song tie you emotionally, the vocabulary of instrumental music is equally powerful. On the slide is an image of an artist holding a musical instrument called the Dilruba. How emotionally refreshing it is to hear a musical instrument named Dilruba. The word has its origins in Persian language that means object of desire. Well, the Dilruba is of Indian origin, an instrument that is very important in the Sikh tradition. The Dilruba musicians were accompanying artists during the recitation of the Guru Bani. It's an important improvement. I beg your pardon. It's an improvement over a similar but heavier musical instrument called the taus. Made lighter in weight, the Dilruba could easily be carried on horseback during wartime or travel. In addition to combat or travel and protective gear, the Dilruba was a spirit's lilting emotional gear. We view and hear a short segment by artist Jatinder Singh rendering Rag Yaman on the Dilruba. In contemporary times, rap would be a very good example as an emotional response to music. Staying power. Each era clocks its timestamp of prevalent music, finding its residency in a music vault. The music vault then serves as a collective bank, a sign of music's lasting allure. Music in its creation gets influenced by vectors of staying power: melody, choice of lyrics, choice of genre, belief, customs. Research has shown that musicians may thrive or fade away. However, music has staying power. Each generation brings its posse of artists, composers who are game changers, who shake up the old order. Even though nobody gets to decide what future generations will embrace, sounds of music will resonate till the very ends of earth. One of the many illustrations of staying power is the relevance of weaver poet Kabir's poignant poetry set to music. Is it the lyrics that has multiple meanings and hence finds its home in many hearts? Are they tunes laced around the verse? What is the enduring combination that strikes the chord? Let's take a look at two groups engaging with the 15th century poet's works. The Lanka and the Manganear communities are exclusively hereditary groups who make their living as musical performers. The knowledge of their music is passed from one generation to another through oral tradition. The children hear the elders sing songs and assimilate the lyrics. They observe the elders play instruments like the Sindhi sarangi, the kartal or the wooden clappers, the morchan or the jaw harp, and gain dexterity in wielding the instrument. Their cultural repository is very richly populated with the songs of poet Kabir. Let's view generations sitting together on their village stage, rendering a song in pure folk traditions. The song composed by Kabir Das is Vari jaun re Guru Balhari jaun re, Mara Satguru Angan aya, main vari jaun re. This is a song of surrender to a deeper wisdom, a very sacred song in the repertoire of this group. fusion group, Kabir Cafe, performs songs of Kabir composed with layers of musical motifs from folk, classical, pop, and rock music. Their signature style is energetic guitar strumming, mellow violin melody, sing along style with raw and unpolished sounds. Let's view and hear a musical demonstration. Kabir Cafe with Neeraj Arya taking the lead in singing a song, Halke Gaadi Haak, Mere Ram Gaadi Wale, a song about the journey of life, the body being the cart we ride in.
ओ जरा हल्के गाड़ी हाको ओ मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले ओ जरा हौले हौले गाड़ी हाको ओ मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले जरा हल्के गाड़ी हाको मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले जरा हौले हौले गाड़ी हाको मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले जरा हल्के गाड़ी हाको
मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले
जरा हौले हौले गाड़ी हाको मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले गाड़ी मारी रंग रंगीनी रुपैया लाल गुलाल गाड़ी मारी रंग रंगीनी रुपैया लाल गुलाल आकड़ वाली चल छबीली नी बैठन वाला राम भैया हल्के गाड़ी हाको मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले जरा हौले हौले गाड़ी हाको मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले
5 centuries since the death of weaver poet Kabir Das, his verses are still being set to different musical energies. What a lovely demonstration of staying power. I end my curator's talk, 7 notes to infinite expressions, with the words of poet T.S. Eliot. You are the music while the music lasts. Thank you for listening.